Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're going to explore something kind of profound. A framework for a meaningful life, straight from ancient Indian philosophy.
That's right.
We've got excerpts from a modern text that breaks these concepts down.
Okay.
And we're even going to dip into some verses from the Bhagavad Gita itself.
Wow.
By the end of this, you'll not only understand these philosophies, but see how they can be applied to your life today.
It's amazing how relevant these ancient ideas still are.
Yeah.
Think of it as a roadmap to navigate our modern world with more purpose.
Exactly. And we're going to kick things off with a story.
Okay.
The tale of Nachiketa from the Katha Upanishad.
All right.
Have you ever felt like you were just going through the motions?
Yeah.
Like something was missing? That's where Nachiketa's journey begins.
Okay.
He sees his father performing a ritual sacrifice and starts asking some seriously bold questions.
Interesting.
Kind of like a young Socrates.
He's questioning the meaning of the ritual itself, the value of what's being offered. Then he throws out this curveball. Father, to whom will you offer me?
Wow.
It's almost like he's saying, what's the point of all this if we're all heading towards the same fate?
And his father, maybe a little frustrated, says, to Yama, the god of death.
Oh my.
Now, most kids would be terrified.
Yeah.
But Nachiketa is different.
Interesting.
He takes this as a challenge, a quest for answers, and heads straight to Yama's realm.
Wow.
Talk about gutsy.
What's fascinating to me is his determination.
Yeah.
He waits at Yama's doorstep for 3 days. No food, no water.
Oh, wow.
This kid is serious about getting those answers.
Right.
And I think it speaks to something universal in all of us, that deep desire to understand life's big questions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Yama, impressed by this relentless pursuit of knowledge,
Okay.
finally decides to share some wisdom. He uses the analogy of a chariot to explain the concept of the self.
Okay.
And this is where it gets really interesting.
Think about it. The body is like the chariot itself. Our senses are like the horses pulling us in different directions.
And the mind, trying to keep those senses in check, is like the reins.
Yes.
But who's holding the reins?
That's the intellect, the charioteer trying to guide the horses.
So where do we fit into all of this? Who's riding in the chariot?
That would be the embodied self, the part of us experiencing life's ups and downs.
Oh,
But here's the twist. The true self, the Atman, is actually the owner of the chariot.
So even when the chariot breaks down,
Yeah.
meaning our physical body dies,
Right.
the Atman, that true self, continues on. It's a powerful way of looking at death.
Yeah.
Not as the end, but as a transition.
Exactly.
And this idea is tied to the concepts of karma and rebirth.
Yes.
Karma, in this context, is simply cause and effect.
Right.
Every action we take, every thought we have, creates ripples that shape our future experiences. So those who haven't achieved liberation, a state called moksha, are reborn based on their karma.
It's like they get a new chariot to continue the journey.
The ultimate goal is to live a life that leads to liberation from this cycle of rebirth.
Right.
A life that helps us understand our true nature is the Atman.
Exactly.
It makes you think, doesn't it?
It does.
What are we really striving for in our lives?
That's the big question.
It definitely does.
Yeah.
And speaking of those big questions,
Okay.
Nachiketa's journey reminds me of the struggles we all face.
Hmm.
Who am I? Why am I here?
Yeah.
It's like these questions are echoing through time.
Right.
And this is where the Bhagavad Gita comes in, right?
Right.
If you think about it, you, the listener, are asking these very questions through Nachiketa.
It's true.
Now, the Bhagavad Gita offers some profound answers. It tells us that the real you is not your body or mind,
Yeah.
but the Atman,
Right.
that unchanging eternal self beyond any physical form.
It's a lot to wrap your head around.
That's a lot to wrap your head around. But if that's who I am,
Okay.
then what's my purpose? Why am I here?
Yeah. The Gita says your purpose is to perform your dharma,
Yeah.
your duty, without being attached to the results. It's not about chasing success,
Right.
but about acting righteously,
Yeah.
because that aligns you with your true nature.
So it's less about outcomes and more about living with integrity and purpose.
Exactly.
It's about doing the right thing simply because it's the right thing to do.
Which leads us to the question, what is life? According to the Bhagavad Gita, it's a journey of the soul aiming for liberation from suffering and the cycle of rebirth.
Okay.
It's about evolving, learning, and ultimately achieving that state of moksha.
It's like we're all on a quest for something bigger than ourselves.
Right.
But is there a purpose to this quest?
Yeah.
Is it just about going through the motions, or is there something more?
The Gita suggests there all thus a greater purpose
Okay.
to align your life with universal laws and wisdom.
Hmm.
It's about realizing your full potential,
Yeah.
not just as a human being,
Right.
but as a spiritual being.
So it's about connecting with something far greater than ourselves.
Yes.
But what about the ultimate question? Is death the end?
According to the Bhagavad Gita, death is not the end, but a transition. The soul takes on a new body, continuing its journey towards evolution and eventual liberation.
Oh, that's a lot to process. It feels like we've just scratched the surface.
Yeah,
So how do we actually apply these profound concepts to our everyday lives?
right.
This is where the 4 Purusharthas come in, right?
Absolutely.
These 4 aims of human life offer a practical framework for living in alignment with these spiritual truths.
Okay.
Think of them as a compass guiding you towards a fulfilling existence. I'm ready to dive into that compass. Let's explore those 4 Purusharthas, Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha, in part 2. All right, we're back and ready to unpack those 4 Purusharthas,
Okay.
Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. Let's start with Dharma.
Okay.
It's often translated as duty,
Right.
but that word feels a bit too rigid, don't you think?
I agree. Dharma is more nuanced than simply fulfilling obligations.
Yeah.
It's about aligning with your true nature, your unique purpose in this world.
Okay.
It's like finding that sweet spot where your passions and talents intersect with the needs of the world around you.
So how do we figure out what our Dharma is?
Right.
Is it something we're born with, or do we discover it along the way?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a journey of self-discovery.
Oh.
It's about paying attention to what brings you a sense of deep fulfillment, what feels right in your gut,
Yeah.
what activities make you lose track of time.
You know, I've always struggled with the idea of finding my one true purpose.
Yeah,
It feels like so much pressure,
right?
but the way you're describing it makes it feel more like an ongoing exploration,
Uh-huh,
a process of aligning with who you are at your core.
exactly.
Okay.
And it doesn't have to be this grand sweeping revelation.
Right.
Sometimes it's about the small, everyday choices we make, how we interact with others, how we approach our work,
Yeah.
how we spend our free time.
Our sources mention that fulfilling your Dharma leads to a sense of inner peace. I can definitely see how that would be true.
Yeah.
When you're living in alignment with your true self, it just feels right.
Yes, it's like everything clicks into place.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean you have to quit your job and become a monk or anything.
Right.
You can bring that sense of Dharma into whatever you do. If you're a doctor, maybe it's about going beyond just treating symptoms and really connecting with your patients on a human level.
Okay.
Or if you're an artist, maybe it's about using your creativity to inspire others or bring beauty into the world.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
So it's about finding that purpose and intention in everything we do.
right,
Okay, let's move on to Artha,
right.
often translated as wealth. But I have a feeling this is about more than just money.
You're right. Artha encompasses all the material resources we need to live a fulfilling life. It includes financial security, but also things like a comfortable home,
Yeah.
access to healthcare, and even having a supportive community.
It's about having the resources to not just survive, but to thrive.
Exactly.
But I remember our source material cautioned against becoming too attached to these things.
Right.
Why is that?
The Bhagavad Gita emphasizes that we should pursue Artha without clinging to the outcome. It's about using these resources wisely and responsibly,
Yeah.
recognizing that they're tools to help us on our journey, not the end goal in themselves.
It's like the old saying, money is a good servant, but a bad master.
Right.
We need money to live, but we shouldn't let it control us.
Exactly. Now let's talk about Kama,
Okay.
which is often translated as desire. This one can be a bit tricky.
Yeah, desire often gets a bad rap.
It's often seen as something we should suppress or avoid.
Right.
But ancient Indian philosophy recognizes that desire is a natural part of being human.
Right.
It's what drives us to create, to connect,
Yeah.
to experience the world in all its richness.
So we're not supposed to deny our desires.
The key is to approach them with awareness and balance. The Bhagavad Gita talks about enjoying desires responsibly,
Okay.
without letting them control us or lead us astray from our dharma.
So it's about finding that sweet spot between enjoying life's pleasures
Right.
without letting them become our sole focus.
Yeah.
It's about aligning our desires with our values and our purpose.
Precisely.
Okay.
And it's also about recognizing that true fulfillment comes from within, not from external things.
Right.
Now let's move on to the final Purushartha, moksha,
Okay.
often translated as liberation.
Hmm.
This seems to be the ultimate goal in this whole framework.
It definitely has a kind of mystical appeal, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But what does liberation actually mean in this context?
Moksha represents the state of complete freedom from suffering and the cycle of birth and death. It's about transcending the limitations of our ego
Yeah.
and recognizing our interconnectedness with everything around us.
It sounds incredibly peaceful,
It is.
but also a bit daunting.
Right.
How can we possibly achieve that kind of liberation while still living in this world with all its challenges?
It's definitely a lifelong journey, not a destination you reach overnight.
Right.
The Bhagavad Gita points to detachment and equanimity as pathways to liberation.
So it's about letting go of attachment to material things, to outcomes,
Yes.
and even to our own sense of self.
Exactly.
Wow.
It's about cultivating a sense of inner peace that's not easily swayed by the ups and downs of life. It's about recognizing that everything is impermanent,
Yeah.
that change is the only constant.
It's like that image of a still pond, undisturbed by the ripples on its surface.
Right.
You know, our source material mentioned near-death experiences and reincarnation as possible evidence that there's more to life than we realize. Do you think those experiences offer any insights into moksha?
That's a fascinating question.
Yeah.
Some people who have had near-death experiences report a sense of profound peace and interconnectedness. Okay.
A feeling of being part of something much larger than themselves? While we can't know for sure, it's intriguing to consider whether these experiences offer a glimpse into that state of liberation that moksha describes.
It definitely makes you think about the nature of consciousness
Yeah.
and what happens after we die.
Right.
But even if we don't have those kinds of experiences, the idea of cultivating inner peace and equanimity in this lifetime is incredibly appealing.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the beauty is that it's a practice anyone can engage in.
Right.
It's about making conscious choices in our everyday lives, to let go of what we can't control,
Okay.
to focus on the present moment, and to cultivate compassion for ourselves and others.
It sounds like it takes a lot of self-awareness and discipline.
It does.
Do you have any tips for someone who wants to start cultivating more moksha in their life?
Meditation is a powerful tool for developing those qualities.
Okay.
It helps us train our minds to be more present,
Right.
to observe our thoughts and emotions without judgment.
And to cultivate a sense of inner stillness.
Right.
Yoga is another practice that can help us connect with our bodies and breath,
Yeah,
which can bring about a sense of grounding and presence.
those are great suggestions. And, you know, our source material also includes a beautiful poem that captures a lot of these ideas in a really evocative way.
It really does.
Yeah.
It talks about a restless heart searching for its purpose.
Yeah.
About the Atman as this eternal flame within us.
Right.
It speaks about fulfilling our dharma, enjoying desires with balance,
Yeah.
and striving for that ultimate liberation to make the soul whole.
It's almost like the poem is a roadmap for this journey we've been talking about.
Right.
A reminder that even though life can feel complicated, there's a simplicity to be found in aligning with these ancient truths.
Exactly.
It's about finding that balance between fulfilling our duties, pursuing our goals, enjoying our desires,
Yeah.
and ultimately striving for that state of liberation that's available to us all.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We've explored the story of Nachiketa Yama's chariot analogy, the cycle of rebirth, the big questions we all have about life,
Yeah.
and these 4 Purusharthas as a framework for living a meaningful life.
Right.
What does this all mean for our listener?
By understanding yourself as the Atman, that eternal self,
Okay.
and by embracing those 4 Purusharthas, Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha, you can bring more clarity and purpose into your life, even amid the complexities of the modern world.
It's like having a compass, a set of guiding principles to help you navigate the ups and downs,
Yeah.
the joys and sorrows that are all part of the human experience.
And remember, you don't have to have all the answers right now.
Right.
This is a journey of self-discovery, and it unfolds one step at a time.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back in part 3, we'll dive into some final thoughts and explore how you can start integrating these timeless principles into your own life.
Sounds good.
We're back and ready to wrap up our deep dive into the 4 Purusharthas. It's been a fascinating journey exploring these ancient concepts
It has.
and how they can apply to our lives today.
You know, it really highlights the timelessness of these ideas.
Yeah.
They speak to something fundamental about the human experience, our search for meaning, purpose, and connection.
You know, it strikes me that the four Purusharthas
Yeah,
aren't meant to be rigid rules,
right.
but rather a framework for reflection.
Exactly.
It's like they offer us a new lens
Mhm.
through which to view our lives and our choices.
It's not about achieving some perfect balance or checking boxes. It's about asking ourselves,
Yeah.
where am I finding fulfillment? Where am I out of alignment?
Mm.
How can I live in a way that honors my true nature and contributes to the well-being of myself and others?
So how can our listeners start integrating these principles into their own lives? Where do they begin?
Well, a good starting point might be to simply reflect on the four Purusharthas
Okay.
and see which one resonates most strongly with you right now. Where do you feel a sense of imbalance or yearning for something more?
That's a great suggestion.
Thanks.
If you're feeling a lack of purpose, perhaps exploring your dharma is the next step.
Right.
If you're feeling stressed about finances or material possessions, maybe it's time to reevaluate your relationship with Artha.
And if you're feeling pulled in too many directions by your desires, perhaps focusing on kama and finding more balance in that area would be beneficial.
Good.
Or if you're feeling a deep longing for peace and connection, maybe exploring practices that cultivate moksha would be a good fit.
It's almost like these four Purusharthas represent different facets of a fulfilling life. They're all interconnected.
Yeah.
And when we nurture each one, the whole system thrives.
It's like a garden.
Cool.
We need to tend to each plant, providing the right amount of sunlight, water, and nutrients for it to flourish. And just like a garden, our lives require ongoing attention and care.
That's such a beautiful analogy.
Thanks.
And you know what I really appreciate about this framework is that it encourages us to take responsibility for our own happiness and fulfillment. It's not about waiting for external circumstances to change,
Right.
but rather about making conscious choices that align with our values and aspirations.
Exactly. The power lies within each of us to create a life that feels meaningful and purposeful. It's about making those daily choices that bring us closer to our dharma.
Right.
Managing our artha, wisely enjoying kama responsibly, and cultivating those qualities that lead to moksha.
It's like we're the artists of our own lives.
Yeah.
And the four Purusharthas provide us with the palette and brushes we need to create a masterpiece.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that life isn't about passively waiting for things to happen.
Right.
It's about actively engaging with the world, making choices, and expressing ourselves in ways that feel authentic and aligned.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Okay.
I encourage you to reflect on what you've learned today. Which of the Purusharthas calls to you most strongly?
Yeah.
What small step can you take today to bring more of that into your life?
Remember, the journey of self-discovery is ongoing.
Right.
There's always more to learn, more to explore, and more to experience. Embrace the process and trust that you have within you the wisdom and the strength to create a life that truly reflects your highest potential.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the four Purusharthas.
It was a pleasure.
We hope you found it insightful and inspiring.
I hope so too.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep growing, and keep diving deep